Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tired F1 pod. Wow, three in a week. What are we doing here in the middle of the summer break? Someone needs to stop us. I am Shez, and you are Ammar. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and we take no time off, man. Summer break? Yeah.
Yeah, summer break doesn't exist in our world, even though we've taken 3 or 4 days off. We are sorry about that,
Come
but we're
on.
back. So Ammar, even in this tumbleweed summer break, there have been a few little bits and pieces. We've already talked about Adrian Newey apparently going to Aston Martin. We've done a mid-season review. What else are you going to do? We've had a little chat about reverse grids as well, um, which you can catch in a video that we'll put the link in at the end of this one. Um, but I wanted to talk a little bit about a chap from your neck of the woods,
Ooh.
Kyle freaking Larson.
Ah.
Kyle Larson, I'm just going to go straight into the quote. He had this to say via Flow Racing. There's probably no way I can go win a Formula One race at Monaco, but I think I'd have a better shot at him, Max Verstappen, doing what he does than him doing what I do just because of the car element. Wait for it. This is the best bit of this quote. That's what gives me ease and confidence that, like, I know I'm better than him. I know I'm better than him. Maybe not in an open wheel Indy car or Formula One car, but that's one discipline. I think I would beat him in everything else. You can quote that. Wow. Kyle Larson.
What
Hit
is
me,
wrong with
Amar.
what he said? What is wrong with what he said? I don't even understand. What is there to debate here?
Well, other than the fact that he's basically said, I can beat you in the disciplines that I can beat you in, and you can beat me in the disciplines that you're good at, that makes me a better driver than you. Tell me how that makes sense.
It makes complete sense in the world from where I'm looking at it, man. We are
Right.
the United States. We have won the most medals. We still dominate in basketball. I mean, you name it. What do you want to do? What do you and look, let me
Not an
level
Olympic
set
sport.
this. Huh?
Motorsport's not an Olympic sport. And I have not
Motorsport is
seen
not an Olympic sport. There
and
you
I've not
go.
seen Kyle Larson at the Race of Champions. Just saying.
Okay, he hasn't been invited. Invite him, and then let's see what happens there. But there you go.
You tell me what would happen. You're so
He's gonna beat whoever's on there. I mean, listen to me. Let me level set with our audience that are outside the United States. Here in the U.S., we love doing this thing. This is a year old, as old as time kind of debate sparked by an athlete who says the most benign thing
this is
on
benign.
earth. And then, yeah, I mean, what do you expect an athlete to do, to say, oh, I'm not as good as the other guy? No, you have to be supremely confident in order to be great at whatever you're doing, because you're competing with other
Love
alpha
it.
males or alpha females, depending on the sport and where they're at. And that's what they're competing for. So I expect no athlete, by the way, not just Kyle Larson. I expect Max to say the same thing. I expect Leclerc to say, heck, I expect Logan Sargent to say that he could beat Max in equal machinery, even though we know that's not going to happen. That is what athletes do. I hate the fact that we ask our athletes to be genuine, to be transparent, to tell us what they think. We interview the heck out of them. And then when they say something like this, we're all up in arms. Like, how could you say that you could beat him in that? Like, why not? Why not? By the way, to this date, we always have the is Michael Jordan better than LeBron debate each and every day. So this is nothing new. And I completely agree with Kyle Larson. And I don't for 1 second question his self-belief. I believe he can beat Max. Why
Okay.
not? That's what he
Okay.
thinks.
Okay. Let's talk about that. So this is less of a question about whether or not Kyle Larson is actually better than Max Verstappen, more of a question about where does Formula One and that as a discipline
Oof.
stand in terms of your level. Like, what level of a driver do you need to be a Formula One driver and a champion Formula One driver? Where does that put you in the pantheon of drivers across all disciplines right now? I'm going to start with a bit of an answer because what Kyle Larson here is saying is that in anything other than an open wheel formula, I would be better than Max Verstappen. Let's take that. Let's walk that back a little bit, right? The last, give me the last two drivers, right, from Formula One that have contested Le Mans and won.
I don't know. I can't think of one.
Fernando Alonso, Nico
Hmm.
Hulkenberg. Nico
Okay.
Hulkenberg turned up to the I can't even remember what year he was doing it, but he turned up in 2016, 2017.
Probably
Turned
afterwards.
up
Yeah. Yeah.
turned up for Porsche, debut, won the race,
I mean,
right?
okay.
Fernando Alonso is a two-time Le Mans winner, once on debut, once in his sophomore season, in which season he also won the WEC championship. Fine, he was driving for Toyota that season, but there was still a bunch of teams and drivers that he had to best, which he did. So let's take that. Let's take IndyCar. So he's okay. Let's. Carl Larson said open wheels aren't my thing, but IndyCar is very different to Formula One. Fernando on debut at the Indy 500 was in with a shout of winning that race, right? Can you tell me that Kyle Larson could get in an Indy car or could get into a Le Mans car or get into a Formula One car and immediately win?
Yes.
Why? Based on what?
Well, because just I
Vibes
wouldn't have,
or
in the same way that I wouldn't have been, I would have told you that Alonso would get into these formats and win. Same way, because these guys, they have self-belief in them and they
uh,
can adjust and they can make things happen. And look, yes, to a certain extent, there's no way to do this comparison because we're comparing apples and oranges. The
correct?
barrier, what, number one, hang on. We've never had drivers from other series go into a Formula One car. How many times has that happened?
Okay, okay. You want to do that? Let's do
Let's
it.
do that.
1993, Michael Andretti, right, wins the IndyCar World Championship, the IndyCar Championship in 1992, right,
So Kyle Larson could do the same thing.
and
He could
heads
go to
off to
Formula One.
McLaren
Yeah.
and gets absolutely walloped.
Okay. So
Is nowhere. Yep. The only two that I can tell you have done well in open wheel racing in the States and then done well in Formula One, Jacques Villeneuve and Juan Pablo Montoya.
there you
But
go.
you could argue that both of those drivers were put into competitive cars immediately,
There you go. There you
and
go. It's
Jacques
about
and
competitive cars.
Jacques
There you go.
Jacques as soon as he finished his 1997 season, the season he won his championship in, never won another race. Never won another race. And Montoya was was probably about level pegging with Ralph Schumacher when he was at Williams. But who was better out of Juan Pablo Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen when they were at McLaren? Who would you rate?
Yeah, I don't, again, I don't fully disagree with you, but I think you're kind of making my point there too, where
What's the
having
point you're
success
making?
in having success in Formula One is not just about the driver. We know this. You need to have machinery that can make you a champion. That is a given. It doesn't matter if you're Lewis Hamilton, Max
Michael Andretti,
Verstappen.
Michael Andretti was in a car that
That's
Ayrton
one
Senna
example.
finished third in the World Championship that year.
Again, every yes, so there is a transition time. It's not always easy. Look, we're talking about intricacies of two different sports. It might be easier for a Formula One driver to go to another series and be more competitive. Absolutely, because that
And
F1
again,
is F1
again,
is the
Amar, we're
pinnacle of
talking about
motorsport.
we're talking
Yeah, so
about
there's
going
no
correct the pinnacle of motorsport, suggesting that you have to be a different caliber of driver
sure.
to
It
win
doesn't
in
mean that it
Formula
can
One.
be. Look, man, look, the barrier to entry to Formula One is very, very high. You only have 20 drivers. You need to be making a lot of money, or you need to be someone that is Lance Stroll, right? To be able to have that seat. Most people don't get a chance to do that.
But
If
Kyle
hang
Larson
on,
isn't talking about beating Lance Stroll. He's saying he's better than Max Verstappen.
of course he should say that because he's looking at go, man,
I'm not
if
saying whether he should say it or not. I'm asking you if you think he is, and you're saying
I have no
yes.
idea. I have no idea, but I have full
Amar, you
confidence in
started
him.
this conversation by
Yes,
saying yes,
because all right,
you
fine.
agree that he's better.
Yes, I do agree that is better, but only because we have never seen it. So go prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Put them
Prove
in
me,
equal
prove you,
machinery and see.
prove yourself
Put
right.
him in
Then
Checo Perez's seat and let's see what happens. Let's do it
yeah, okay. I've already given you examples of drivers that were at the top of their
from
game.
different times.
Yeah, they're not. There wasn't that long
We're talking
ago,
about
man.
today. today. Oh, Andretti was a long time ago. It's more than 20 years ago. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
but
30 years
Montoya
ago.
wasn't a million years ago,
That
and
was 20
Villeneuve.
years ago. But this is all, it's 2024. You're talking about
Okay,
Montoya. That would have had to be what, early 2000s
okay.
at best, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about Marcus Ericsson.
Come on.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. How did he do in Formula One?
Really bad. I don't even know what he did.
Correct. He was beaten by a rookie Charles Leclerc, who was an actual generationally talented driver. He went to IndyCar. What did he do?
I have no idea. I don't follow IndyCar.
Won the Indy 500 the
Yes,
second time
because
of
the
asking.
Indy car is a more open format thing. It is not the same thing. You're arguing apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. The reason we say it's
Mate,
difficult to be a Formula One winner is because the margins, everything is very little. You don't
but
have that kind of thing, but
yeah,
you have it in other formats. So we're not talking about Kyle Larson being better than Max Verstappen. You're talking about
you are
formats.
but that
Yeah, there
is
you
what we're
go.
talking
But
about.
there you
That
go. But
is
what
what
do
we're
you
talking
expect
about.
Kyle Larson to say? I'm better than Logan Sargent? Like, what did you? So where would you have to put it for you to be okay with it? Let me.
Okay,
Okay,
Amar,
fine. It's not Max, right? Where does he have to put
no, but
his comparison to?
it is Max though, and
Okay,
that's what
fine.
we have to be
That's what you do.
Amar, we have to be very
You
clear about
have to
what we're
go after
arguing.
the top dog on the
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah,
side.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't say,
yeah.
what is he going to do? I'm better than Nico Hulkenberg?
This is okay. We have to be clear about what we're arguing about, Amar, because we're not arguing about whether Carl Larson has the right to say what he said. He can say whatever the hell he wants, and yes, to some extent, even I'm like, yeah, good for him for saying that. The actual argument, though, is he actually better than Max Verstappen? And you are saying, yes, he is. I am arguing, no, he is not. For these reasons,
And
that
the
it is
reality is
very
neither of us
difficult.
know. And the reality
It's
is neither
very
of us know.
difficult for someone from even from an open wheel racing series in the United States to come in and be better than the established drivers in Formula One.
But
You're
he's not
telling
talking
me,
about competing in Formula One.
okay, but I am saying that even if you take drivers from Formula One and put them in a closed wheel formula like the World Endurance Championship, Formula One drivers will win.
Okay.
Whereas I have not seen the same thing happen in the other
Yeah.
direction,
And
where
when
I've
I'm
seen
saying,
I haven't seen Tom Christensen turn up and sweep everyone before him.
just because it hasn't been done,
In fact, Alan McNish. Let's use him as an example. Multiple Le Mans winner with Audi, turned up with Toyota, didn't do a thing.
just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it cannot be done again.
And you think Kyle Larson's the one to do it?
I have no idea, but
Why not?
at the moment I would put my money there because that's
What?
where that's what he's
Based
got.
on what?
Based on gut. We Americans have big guts, and my gut feeling says that. Look, you're right. I said yes just to argue this with you. I have no earthly idea if that's possible or not because I think the sample sizes that we're talking about are few and random. It's not like it is easy to move between these sports, right? It's not like playing basketball in the United States and going and playing in another state, in another
Correct.
country. It's not that easy. So I cannot blame a driver for thinking that he can go ahead and do that. And I have to take, and you're right, maybe he isn't going to beat Max, but he's also not talking about beating Max in an open wheel format. So, I
What
don't
is he
know. Let's
talking?
see.
What is he talking about him
Man, he was asked,
being
you
better?
are the one who come on here every time and say Lewis Hamilton is being asked questions. Kyle Larson is being asked a question. In the heat of the moment, he said, yes, I'm better than Max, who he thinks, by the way, as a compliment, is the driver to beat at the pinnacle of motorsport. So the way I read that is this is high praise for Max, who may or may not need it. And he thinks that he can beat Max. What is wrong with that? I have no problem with that. And I don't know if he's going to beat him or not, but I don't care because that's never going to happen. Like we're talking about a hypothetical that is probably never going to happen. So what are the chance of these two things? What are the chances of more?
Okay, so
What
I
is going to
think
happen
that's
more?
okay. So I think that's not true.
Kyle
I think if you
Larson's never going to get a chance to be in Checo Perez's seat.
so okay, so if Race of Champions, for example, is actually not an unfairly controlled set of circumstances. You have the ROC buggies, you have a set track, you have different surfaces. All of those things are tested, right? You've had Sebastian Vettel go up against Sebastian Loeb, and you've seen which way those head to heads go. My argument here is Kyle Larson has gone after the wrong freaking driver, right? If you told me that
We
you
wouldn't be
that
talking
that
about it then.
if if you told me that Carl Larson had said, "I think I'm a better driver overall than say Lewis Hamilton," I'd say,
You
okay,
guys would go crazy
but
then.
yes, don't kill me in the
So,
comments, but actually, I would say that
what are
Carl
you talking
Larson,
about?
I would say that Carl Larson has a point. Let me tell you why. Carl Larson's main thing is that he's a multiple NASCAR Cup winner in a variety of different formats, and he also does a bit of dirt track driving as well. So he's got that. So he's saying, look, I have diversity. I can do a bit of dirt track driving. I can do a bit of oval driving. I can do that in NASCAR. I can do that in dirt cars. That makes me diverse. It makes me better than Max Verstappen. Max, however, spends his entire existence either at a racetrack driving a real Formula One car or online in Sims driving a variety of different formats around a variety of different tracks and is very, very honed at it. I think if you stuck him in a Le Mans car, I think he'd do very well. I think if you stuck him in an Indy car or a NASCAR and had him go round an oval, I don't think he'd be immediately up to speed, but I think very quickly he'd be up the front. Lewis is a slightly different one. I want to give you this quote. So he said, "I don't have any desires to do any other racing. By the time I stop, um, it could be 30 years. I don't know why he said that. Everything else is a step down the ladder. There is no other racing series that I have any desire to drive, which is a shame." Lewis Hamilton via Autosport last year, he said that actually this year, he said this when asked about whether he would want to drive for Ferrari at Le Mans. So for him, I would say, yes, you have an argument because Lewis, as amazing as he is at Formula One, he is a specialist Formula One driver. Everything he does is honed to just be good at driving a Formula One car and get the best out of a Formula One car. Fernando Alonso, for example, is a completely different kettle of fish. He's gone out of his way to say, I want to be the best all-round driver, which is why he went off to try and win the Triple Crown. He went to Le Mans, won that. He went to Indy, almost won it the first time out. Almost is maybe a bit of an exaggeration, hyperbole, you might call it. But that's what he went and did. Nico Hulkenberg, debut Le Mans winner. There are examples of Formula One drivers walking into other disciplines and doing really well. Marcus Ericsson, sorry, winning the Indy 500 is another example of a not even elite Formula One driver doing the same thing. If Kyle Larson went after Lewis, somebody that isn't a driver that is, you know, looking to be good at a variety of different disciplines, I would understand that argument. But going after Max Verstappen, who lives, breathes, and hoops racing 24/7, I think is fallacy. And I cannot understand an argument from anyone that says, yeah, Carl Larson's right. Not that he has a right to have that argument, because he can say what he wants. But I can't understand how you can say that he is correct in that assertion.
He is correct until you prove him wrong. The only way to do that is put him in whatever series you want and then see what happens. Until then, he's correct. Look
So
it
you
up.
are so you are fence sitting, is what you're doing.
Look, put him in the car, prove him wrong. Other than that, that's
Which
fine.
car?
He's
Which car,
whatever
Ammar?
series you want to put him in. He said he doesn't think he could beat Max in an open wheel car. So there's that.
So,
But you
so we're
you do
gonna stick
whatever.
Max in a NASCAR and see how he does.
See how he does. You never
Yeah.
know.
So yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I would, I would,
if he
I would,
gets bumped like what happened this past weekend,
I
then
would,
then I can't imagine Max being happy with
I would
that.
still stick my money on
Of
Max
course you
Verstappen
would.
beating
I
Carl Larson in a NASCAR.
I wouldn't be surprised if you did, but that
Did
is your
you? Did you?
prerogative.
And
Uh-huh.
and look, the QED, like the pièce de resistance of my argument, is Talladega Nights.
There you go. Yeah, I agree.
That's right.
That's how you do it. That's how we do it. And listen,
The
again,
guy,
I think we're doing a much about nothing because it was a very benign quote that was made in the heat of the moment. And listen, athletes are supremely confident. You ask basketball players if they can beat LeBron one-on-one, they will always say that. Doesn't mean that they will. There's no way that they will, and they're proven to not be able to do that. Yet they have to have that, and I have zero problem with that. And we're never going to be able to see Max and Kyle probably in equal machinery. So Formula One by construct is a sport where you don't necessarily have equal machinery. You have somewhat similar machinery, but you don't really have equal machinery. So unless you're on the same team, which Red Bull doesn't appear to want to give that seat to anyone but Checo. So there we go. So I have no problem with that. And
Oof.
I completely agree with your logic. You're taking a logical stance on why he wouldn't be successful. What I'm saying is his response is an emotional response of an athlete of his kind that has had some success. So I don't mind him thinking that he could duplicate that success elsewhere. Why wouldn't he think that?
Yeah, Ammar, I also don't have a problem with him saying it, but you are not him.
Yeah,
You are not.
I have no
You
way
are.
of knowing that. I
You
have
are
no way
not
of knowing that.
Kyle. You are not Kyle Larson. But the whole point of our podcast is for you to come up with
Yeah,
an
but
opinion.
listen, I'm not gonna fart opinions out of thin air because I don't have enough. I don't have enough to tell you other than all I have to go by is yeah, he would do that. But again, we
Vibes.
don't know until we see that happen. And every comparable example you bring is still a very small sample set, in my opinion. That's all I would say. And I don't disagree with any of the examples you've given, but it's still a very small sample set. And to a certain extent, the odds are stacked against any driver coming out of another format because to be a Formula One driver is to be 1 or 20, right? So you have to be, although Logan Sargent, I think I could see that happening very easily, right? And I don't know why I'm pooping all over Logan Sargent. We shouldn't do that. But that's kind of where it is.
Okay, there you have it, everyone. So Kyle Larson is better than Max Verstappen, according to Ammar. Uh, let us know what you think. As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. Let us know, is Max going to get steamrolled by Kyle Larson in the same car, or does Max have a few more tricks up his sleeve? As usual, we read all the comments and we will reply to as many as we possibly can. We love hearing from you guys. Please subscribe. We are ever closer to that magic 1,000 subs. It's what we're aiming for, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.